All right, so my name's Alison and I'm customer support and customer success at fieldmargin app. Worked here for 4 years. We've definitely spoken to some of you, but if you ever want to speak in the future, you can contact us using the intercom system at the bottom right of the screen. And this is Camilla, the product manager.
Hello. Yeah, also been at fieldmargin 6 years now. So from pretty early days, and also some familiar faces here, and we'll probably speak to some of you in the future, asking you about what would you like to see in the app and things like that.
Welcome, thank you for coming. I appreciate you appreciate your time. I understand you're very busy people. So this is our second webinar with the theme of streamlining livestock management with fieldmargin. And yeah, from the list we had a nice mix of new users and legacy users. So again, thank you for coming. So a little bit of an outline. First, Camilla's going to give an introduction of livestock development with fieldmargin app and how, a little bit how we started. Then we're going to have some live demos, going to share our screens, kind of show you a little bit of a farm that's been set up. And then third, we're going to talk about the pipeline features that we've got coming, designs what we're working on at the moment. And then lastly, we've got a pre-recorded video from our guest farmer, Andre Christie-Smith. So he's been using the app for 4 years. It's been about how he's been using it for farm management and also his audits. And he might be able to come along later, but he said he's off-site today. And just a bit of a housekeeping. Yeah, if you could keep yourselves on mute, that'd be great. But if you have any questions at all, you can use the messenger icon on the right of the screen. So if you type in there, everyone can see it. If you have any questions, we can answer them here. So for example, you can introduce yourself, say hello. We've already spoken actually a little bit about what farms you're working on, but that's how that would work. And we will actually have towards the end, we'll answer questions as we go, but towards the end, we can have more of a questions discussion section. Cool. So to Camilla.
So yeah, a bit of background on livestock tools in fieldmargin, how they came about. Everything that we build at fieldmargin is really focused on what do our users, farmers, want, and what are they telling us they'd like to see in the app, and how can we improve. And that was the case with the livestock features that we have in the app today. So it came about because we already had at that time mapping and field records, and I know certainly Sheldon will remember from before this. I'm not sure about everyone else. And people were coming to us and saying, I'd like a way of recording where my animals were grazing. And we were seeing farmers doing things like recording where their animals were with notes or with field usages. So we could see there was a real clear need for that to be something that you could do with fieldmargin. And so we started thinking, right, we've got livestock farmers, how can we make a useful product for them? And the thing that fieldmargin's been strong in and was really the backbone of the app from the get-go is mapping and making something that's very visual. So it made sense for us that if we were to go into livestock, we'd focus on that visual aspect of managing your livestock and where they are on the farm map, where they're grazing. And we also thought it was going to be really important, especially as people are becoming more conscious of their grazing management, to be able to track where have those animals been in the past. So that's why we built livestock history. So you can see for each herd, and we'll show you all of this later on in the call, being able to see for each herd, where have they been in the past, and also having that grazing history on each field so that you can go back and see when was this field last grazed, how long was it grazed for, and how long has it had to rest. And then after that initial launch, we've added in things like being able to add on notes and tasks on herds so that you can record a little bit about what you've been doing with those animal groups, and also archiving them and changing the number of animals and keeping a track of those changes in animals so that you're building out that history of particular herd or flock or group, mob, as you like to call them, on your farm. And now that's something that's been really successful and picked up by lots of farms that are using fieldmargin. So we've got over 22,000 herds that have been set up on fieldmargin all time. and obviously lots of, I guess, your typical livestock, so things like cattle, sheep, pigs, chickens, but we've also got some farms who are keeping track of things like llamas, buffalo, emu, and even some conservation projects who have been using the livestock management tool. So that's been interesting to see how it's evolved and grown. And yeah, as Ali mentioned, then later on in the call, we'll talk a little bit about what's coming next for livestock features, but also really keen to take this opportunity to hear what you'd like to see and what would be useful for you in your farm businesses. Back to Ali.
Perfect. So we'll start a farm demo now. Just share my screen. Okay. So hopefully you're able to see my screen now. Perfect. Okay, so I'm showing you from field on the web platform. So this is how a setup farm would look. So with fieldmargin, you can find the livestock sections on the activity plan bar on the left-hand side. Here's where you can see a list of all your mobs and all your herds. So within fieldmargin, you manage your farm, your animals in groups or your herds. So to add a herd, simply tap this button, select the animals you have. In the herd name, you can add a detail, for example, kind of sex, gender, age of the animals, and then you can add the number of animals here. It's quite simple. Once you've set up a herd, it will become part of your herd list. You can see it here. And then to add it to a field, you simply go to the current location section, select add, and then select the field that you've moved it to, and tap move. So when you do that, the move will become part of the history of the herd and also of the pasture. So in the most part, this will be done on mobile. So what at the end of the day, you can quickly on your mobile move it as it happens. This is just, the quick thing. If you want to have a more detailed demo, reach out to us and we can send you videos about how that's done.
Cool. So that's sort of your first step of setting up your herds. And then once you start building up a history of where your animals are, so we can see all of them on the map here, then you can start building up more information about that herd. So the moves that you've done with your herds will become part of your field or pasture history. So if you go to the field history tab when you're viewing a field and you scroll down, then you'll be able to see over time what groups you've had in that field and when, and also for each group, if it's been taken out of the field, how long they grazed for, and the amount of time that that field has had to rest in between being grazed. And if it's a field that's empty, this one isn't, but if it was, then you'd see here a little bit of information to tell you how long it's had to rest. So if you're looking and seeing what pasture is going to be exactly like that, so that's only had 1 day, but if you had, say, a target of allowing 45 days the rest period, that grass will be
Plenty.
up to your neck. That would be a way of checking and seeing where might you have pasture that's sufficiently recovered and be able to graze when you're doing your grazing planning. You can also, if we go back to the herd, make a note on your herd. So this is useful for anything that you've done to the animals as a group. So for example, drenching, worming, dagging out for sheep, any information about the group that you want to record. So to do that, you can go either from viewing the herd or just the add note button that you find in the bottom right hand of the app, and then choose the herd that you want to attach. So go add a note, and then you can give it a title. So for example, we're coming up to lambing, and I know we've got some blood work that we want to do with our ewes before they lamb. So we could say ewe bloods. We can mark this as a to-do as well if it's a task that needs to be done. And when you do that, you'll get the option to set a due date. So let's say we're going to start lambing at the 1st of April and we want to do this a month before, so the 1st of March. Set that due date, and that means I'll get a reminder on my phone, and also anyone else who I've tagged on that note will get a reminder. So if I tag Ali, she'll get a reminder as well on that day to say, right, we need to get these blood tests done. You can also add a description here if you want to provide some additional information. And then once you've saved that, you've got the option to add a comment, or you can even attach a file. So you might say, bloods done, results were, and then whatever they were. Or you could attach a file if you'd had some results back from the vet. Or if you're doing this on your phone, you can take a photo of some animals that you want to include as well. And that will all become part of your herd history. And you'll also see on here, if you change the number of animals, so say you have an animal die, you can click on add, remove, and change this number here. So let's say that's 44 now. And then you'll see on your herd history, it's recorded that there was one less animal, and you could add a note to say why that is.
Cool. Thank you. So now I'm going to show you some of the mappings, scouting and job features that we've got set up, in particular that can focus on livestock management. So first off, we have features. So these are things that you can set up for current or permanent infrastructure. So it's good for recording your assets, maintenance, planning and organising. So for example, your buildings, if you've got kind of locations of first aid kit or important piece of kit, you can save that location. For example, gates and access. If you save these on the map on mobile as well, you've got the option to highlight them on the map. And then with mobile, when you open that particular feature point, you've got the option to get directions to it. So that will take you to your direction tool within your app. And instead of going to just a random part of the farm, you'll be directed to the exact gate that you need access to. You've got kind of public footpaths with features. They can be drawn as lines, areas, or points. So if you've got fencing that needs repairs or kind of areas of footpath that needs maintenance, you can measure them out and share them with the team. There's also a health and safety aspect you can use. So I always use the example of a big hole, which I'm sure is a health and safety risk, but you can map them out on your farm. So for example, if there's any new starts or contractors, they know risks on your farm. The other thing I often advise is if you've got any nitrate vulnerable zones or any zones that you can't apply certain sprays, you can map them out. So you've got that visible for kind of everyone on your team and for any audits. And what's good about features as well is you can turn the visibility on and off. So essentially it acts as a layer on your map. Also useful for rotational planning. So if you have water points mapped out on your farm, you can know if your animals have access to these certain points and what you've got there. So the next we have are notes. The idea with a note is that you can save them using your GPS location to for scouting. It's also a reminder of information that you might need later. So one example is pasture health monitoring. So if we view this on the map, if there's a point where you're interested in monitoring your pasture health over the year, you can select it. You can set it up as a note on your farm. Again, you can tag people to join, tag interested parties, contractors, for example. And then over time, you can add photographs at different sections in the season to kind of as a representative of how the pasture's doing. You can add notes, conditions of the swards, species diversity. You can add plate meter readings and results here too. So, for example, the other thing you could do is we've got a soil analysis. This is something else that's quite we can do. And what you can do with this is you can attach it to a field. So if you know the exact field it's attached to, and then that would become part of the field history, and you can upload a file. So that can be accessed by everyone, visible on mobile too. And with notes, you can also map them out as an area. So for example, down here, I've mapped out an area that's had some issues with waterlogging, as well as being able to share that area with everyone, just make sure everyone's aware. And these are distinct for each season. So as you change farm year, you can see what observations were separated. The other way you can do plate readings actually is using data monitoring sites. So this is for anywhere that you collect numerical data regularly. You can set up monitoring sites and from your mobile, kind of add that data. Again, keep it saved for everybody, produce simple graphs. Instead of just adding it on a notepad, you're uploading it to be around all your other records. So these have been used for insect counts at the moment. You can use them for insect counts. And if you do plate meter readings from the same area of your farm, you can set up a monitoring site there. Now for mapping, we have a subfield feature. So if I go to my fields here, so subfields lets you split one big field into many smaller areas. So this can be useful for mob grazing or if you're moving your animals regularly between these small areas and your records here. So for example, you can see this side field, Sayer field, has been split up into 6 different sections. So each section has its own kind of record as a subfield about which animals have been in it and how they've been moved. And you've also got a record of the size of each subfield as well. So this feature, when you draw it out on web, it will sync to mobile. So you've got that record there. And also on iOS, on Apple Mobile, you can draw subfields as well. So if you're in the field and you've just set up a new area, you can get that drawn out while you're in the field. And subfields, you can have a new set of subfield for every farm year. So as you change farm year, it would give you the option to copy across your subfields or to keep the fields as one big field. So now I'll share a little bit. Camilla mentioned a little bit about field jobs and how you can set to-dos and due dates. So for one thing you can do in particular, if I set up, for example, a fertilizing job, you can attach fields on your farm. You can attach multiple fields. So if you're doing this, and then you can add inputs. So we've got some artificial fertilizers already pre-set up for you with their nutrient contents. But you can also set up your own, for example, slurries and manure. And by doing that and kind of making that record as you complete jobs, you can complete jobs, save the time and who completed the work, and that will let everyone know through a notification on your farm. And also, if you go to a field, also if you then go to a field and you look at the reports, you can keep track of how much nitrogen or how much of a general fertilizer you've already applied. So you know throughout the season, very quickly, you've got the record of how much you've applied, are you within your limits, and you've got the rate per hectare and the total amount too. And then one last thing I'll show you is potential for using field margin again for your silage and haymaking and other. Obviously, you can use it for if you produce any crops as well. But what you can do is with field jobs, there's a silage and haymaking option. So if I go here, silage and haymaking, you can set these up, mark complete, and as you mark them complete, you can mark off field one by one and record the amount of bales you got on each field as you do it from the field. As well as keeping everyone up to date and having that for your records, we've got simple reports here too. So you've got a yield report where you can add in the income that you're making for the bales, and then you can, for each different output, and then you can compare which of your blocks have performed relative to each other across the farm. We've also got nutrient reporting and a way of tracking the amount you've spent on fertilizers. We've also got a usage report, so you can, if there's an audit or anything, you can very quickly show what percentage of your farm is being used and maintained for different production. Cool. So that's about it. That's it for the demo. If you have any questions, we can answer them at the end, or we can answer them from the message box.
Shallon's, yeah, please go on.
Please go on. Perfect.
Thanks. Yeah, I've got a manager working with me, and I, for example, mark some sections on fences where they needed repairs on field margin. And when I look at it on my phone, it kind of zooms into that area. And I don't know if it's because he's quite new on field margin and it hasn't loaded data or whatever, but if you're not necessarily around data, and when he looks on his phone, it doesn't show you that area, and it becomes quite difficult for him to figure out where it is. So I don't know if that's a software glitch or what it is. But that's something to really maybe look at there.
Yeah, we can look into that after this meeting. Do you know, is he using an Android or an iOS phone?
He's on Android, I think, as well. We both are. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have offline mode where you can download the background maps, but you do have to make sure that the phone is regularly synced. But if he's already synced his phone, so is the features actually there? It's just the issue is it doesn't zoom into it enough.
That's it. So to me, it seems like he's too far out, so he can't actually figure out where it is on the map.
Yeah. Okay, we'll look into it. Thank you. We have that sometimes if you have two fields very far apart, the app doesn't know where to zoom into. So that might be worth checking as well. So I'll ask that.
Any other questions? That's fine. Otherwise, stop sharing and I'll talk a little bit about what's coming up next.
Yeah.
Livestock. So what's coming up next for livestock? One of the things that we have been asked about, and so I'll get it out of the way first, is individual animal records. The direction that we're certainly focusing on for now is much more around looking at animals as a group and things that relate to where they are on the map and that group level management, because the complexity that comes in, especially when you need to get into things like ear tag numbers and individual dosing and linking up with stick reader, if you guys are using EIDs and things like that, brings in a whole level of complexity, and we're trying to keep field margin as clean and easy to use as possible. So the direction that we're going on with that is that we'd look to integrate with another farm management system that focuses on individual animal records and VetMed and that piece, and link up with them. So you'd have, these are the animals that are in my herd. I look after their grazing and where they are in group level things in field margin. And then for those things where you need to know individual level animal records and IDs, that would be linked up with an external platform. So very keen to hear about if anyone's using particular platforms that they really love and they think you should definitely be linking with these guys. They're really cool and open for working together. Please let us know. And then in terms of what's coming up for us, we've got some short-term improvements around being able to manage the herds that you have on farm. So things like making it easier to, as you're changing around the groups that you have on your farm, making it easier to split groups or merge together two groups. We've obviously got archiving now, so streamlining that process, and then potentially more information about the animals that are in that group. So not down to the individual, but things like you can already say in the name, are these ewes or ewes with the lamb at foot or yearlings, but building out the granularity of that to be able to say maybe these are, you know, what the average weight is in the group, or things like there's 50 ewes or 100 lambs. That's the direction that we're going in terms of improvements for herds. And then the thing that I think is most exciting for us and hopefully will be interesting for you is looking at how we can help with planning and managing grazing rotations. So first step for that would be more reporting. So we've already got the field history and herd history, so you can see when a field's been grazed, but being able to see that at a farm level, so it's easier to see across your whole farm how long's everything been grazed, and where are the gaps. And I think that's something where we could then build out into some quite interesting directions in terms of helping you to see where are there, as we said earlier, fields that have had a long enough rest period, and also by having that information about how long each field was grazed across the year. If you're doing things like measuring nitrogen from your livestock that you have grazing on the field, it would make calculating that a lot easier. So that's just a taster of things that we have in the pipeline. I think I might have sent some of you already previews of some of those a while ago, so don't worry, they haven't been forgotten. Yeah, any suggestions or questions, please ask now, or feel free to drop me a line after this session if something occurs to you.
Yeah, we're also really interested to know what reports you'd like, kind of the format of the reports. Would something in Excel be helpful for you? What's the kind of layout and setup you need?
Yeah, so we have to report for tax and everything at the end of the year as well, in quantities and different ages of cattle. So I think it would be quite useful. Now you're saying you bring in, you know, different types of ages and things like that into the herd. That will be quite useful to be able to report on an annual basis the balances of those different ages of cattle. And you know, you'd have your cow, your heifer, and your calves, and your weaners, and all that type of thing. If we can strategically pull that out in a spreadsheet every year, that we don't have to manually then monitor that, that'll be really helpful.
Yeah, if you have an example of the type of spreadsheet you'd like, that would be great to hear that, to see that.
Great.
The thing that saves you time and admin time in front of a computer is good. Great. Well, I'll get the video going. So this is from Andre, one of our very, very early users who's given quite a lot of feedback. So we'll just get this going now.
I'm Andre Christie-Smith, and I farm on a 4,500 hectare farm in South Africa. Mixed farming. It's got small grain, cattle, and sheep farming, producing mainly fine wool.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've been using fieldmargin. I think how long? Probably 4 years. How long have you guys been going?
I think 4 years. Well, it was 3 to 4 years, because I remember
Yeah.
we spoke to you quite early on for feedback before we even really introduced herds.
Yes. I started using it just as a field mapping.
Yeah.
And actually use it very differently to what it's being used for now.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, it's developed quite nicely over the years.
Yes, as initially it was kind of mapping and what you were growing where, kind of land use, but we've introduced herds and some of the grazing features as well.
Yes, we waited for coffee, and my staff are having coffee now, and I'll quickly go and see them and say, well, what have you done today? No, we've moved these sheep to this camp and those sheep to that camp. And I quickly change it on fieldmargin, and if the guy's been spraying, he gets a list of what spraying he needs to do. At the end of the day, I'll say, how far have you gotten? And we sort of update the list as we go along. So it's fairly easy to be on top of it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know. It's a kind of how we could make that easier potentially going forward, even with kind of the tracking how much stock you have in, either of the chemicals or actually of what you've produced as well.
Well, actually, yes, that would be great, because one of the things that wool growers across the world are doing with sustainability and with Greenpeace and all those sort of scary people out there, Peter and all of them, they're looking for standards, production standards, and the wool's got one called the Responsible Wool Standard, or RWS. You'll find if you look at some of the shops in the UK, Marks and Spencers, and they've got the RWS logo on the shirts. They require all this stuff. We do need to have a stock
Mhm.
of our chemical store needs a stock sheet, and our animals need a grazing plan, and all that kind of. And field margin does 90% of what they want. But at my last audit, they asked me, "Well, do you have a grazing plan?" I said, "Well, I use field margin." I went, "Oh, okay." "And do you have a planting plan?" I said, "Well, I use field margin." "And do you have a do you have stock records?" "Well, I use field margin." And I got ticks for everything was a tick.
Yeah.
Okay. And they
Yeah.
didn't even ask to see it.
Mhm.
And they quite like the reporting is quite nice. And I'm sort of going across to it now. I've sort of, the one thing they quite like is the usage report, the field usage. Because I've got my entire farm mapped out between fallow, and I've got marshlands, and I've got just natural veldt. I can see my whole farm usage straight away, and they quite like that. You can sort of see that you're not overusing your land and stuff. So that's it's very useful.
It all is kind of generated automatically as well, so you don't have
Yes.
to. It's not another thing to do, essentially.
No, it's not. No,
No.
setting up the farm took a little while to get all those little bits and pieces done. But I mean, once it's done,
course.
it's done. You don't have to worry about it again. And I do like that it carries over from year to year, and you can sort of it groups the years individually. So it's quite nice to go back and see what year. You don't have to put everything back in again, which is quite nice.
Do you do individual animal records? Is that something that you use any other software for?
No, I don't. And that's one of the main reasons why I liked field margin, is because it didn't do individual animals. All the other stocking programs do individual animals. And we've got 5,500 sheep. I don't need to know each individual animal by name.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like the fact that you can do a group of animals, a flock of sheep, or a herd of cows, or a flock of geese if you've a goose farm or whatever.
Eggs of production, yeah.
How many eggs are there? How many eggs are chicken laid?
Yeah.
But for me, it's I don't need the individual. We're not a stud farm. I do think that there are some people that would like that. Certainly like a stud breeder, if he does have individual animals, because it's on the mobile app. It's useful.
Yeah.
You've always got your phone with you, and I mean, like I know this, the ram breeders, they mark the lambs the day they're born. They're tagged with the mother, and they know who the ram, the sire was. But RFID tags are becoming more common now.
Yeah.
So if you guys can somehow link in to an RFID tag system, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's
No challenge.
Yeah, a bit of a different software that does just a bit of a challenge.
Yes.
Do you do much soil analysis?
We do. We will do every paddock before it becomes joins the rotation. So every 10 years or so, every camp will get 10 or 12 years. We do analysis. I've actually just done. I don't know if you've got you probably haven't got my farm up there, but I've just done the entire western half of the farm. Did the entire farm soil samples recently.
Oh, brilliant! And then you've got that. You can access.
Yeah, I've got that up on a piece of paper, though. Unfortunately, yes.
Did you know that you can upload files though? So that's one thing you can do is if you take a photograph of the paper and then you can upload it in the comments of notes, or you can or if you have it saved as a file, you can upload it to a note comment. That's what people have been doing for soil analysis. Because again, you can then access it at home instead of looking to an email or something.
Yes, and that's definitely the way to go. What I've actually been doing, one of the things that I do, again with RWS, they require you to have the body condition scoring of your animals. So are they fit and healthy? Are they fat? Are they too skinny? Are they too fat? And that's usually done on a piece of paper with a little bar graph saying 0.2, 3, 4, and 5, and you put a cross in this one or in that one or in this one based on what you see. What I've been doing, which has so far worked for RWS, is I just take a photograph of my sheep when I'm working them.
Yeah.
And I upload that file into the task. And when they audit me and say, well, what do your sheep look like? I say, well, there's a photograph. That's what they look like on this date.
Wow.
So that uploading a file is also a brilliant idea where you can attach something. And if I do planting, I take a photograph of the etiquette of the seed and attach that to the job as well. So if there's any comebacks with the seed or whatever, and the fertilizer, I add to it as well. Well, what did you plant here? Call up the planting job, look at the etiquette, and the photograph is there. So it's very useful having the upload option.
Are you concerned that audits, is audit something that concern you, or something that you think is just part of the job? Will there be more, or?
I think there'll be more, and I think they're part of the job, and they're actually, so far, they've been helping us because they're improving our farming practices and bringing us up to international standards where we've been sort of lagging behind, I think, quite a lot. And certainly for us on the wool side, we're seeing it in our pockets.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, being RWS certified is giving us 20 to 30% premiums on our wool over non-certified wool. So bring on the audit, we don't mind, while it's paying.
No, thank you very much. It's been really interesting talking to you.
Yeah, it's been great fun. I must
yeah,
say, I also like your data option on your thingy. I use that to monitor my boreholes and my rain.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, we might be connecting that to sensors too, so that would be a useful thing.
Yeah, that'd be very useful. Yeah.
Sensors and borehole. I mean, some of the users we have, I don't know how many you have, but they've got a lot of rain gouges across the farm. So
Yes, no, we used to have 2, but we're down to 1 now. I'm too lazy to go and check the second one.
Yeah.
We've actually got we call it our planting book. It's got our sowing records. And look, we're the 6th generation on the farm. And I think the sowing record started, I'm not going to lie to you, I think it was 1934 or something. And this book, we've got every year's sowing records in it. And my son's going to take over the farm, obviously, one day. He's only 12 now, but he'll take over next week if you ask him. So don't ask him.
Oh, he's keen.
But I think by the time we've filled that book, we'll have 100 years worth of records in the book.
Amazing.
So maybe one day field margin will also have 100 years. I'm not going to backdate everything, though. I think there's 40 diaries lying in my office.
Yeah.
But they're in my father-in-law's handwriting, and I can't read his handwriting, so they serve no purpose anymore. But I can't throw them away, though.
No, you never know what we're going to have for tea as well. What's getting in there?
Yes, yeah. But that's a nice thing about field margin is I don't have a diary. Field margin is my diary. I make a note, stick it in the note, and it's there, and you've got it.
But yeah, we're definitely seeing more people are coming as recommendations, which is fab to see.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm certainly doing my bit for you guys. I mean, every function we go to. But are you using field margin? And have you heard about field margin? I think it's one of the best apps. It's got everything on it. There are better apps for everything that you do. I think there is a better app for monitoring your field usage. Some of them that are linked to, like John Deere, have got a program, their own program and stuff. And there are better stock monitoring apps that do like the individual animals and for dairies and all that kind of stuff. But I haven't found an app that does everything to a good enough standard to say that it's usable. So I think Field Margin is the perfect combination app. And you can apply it to, I know fruit farmers have got it, and I know dairy farmers have got it, and I know I've got it. I'm a mixed farmer, sheep and grain and everything. I use it, and I find it's the most all-round package, or the most efficient, or I don't know what the right term is, the best all-round package available.
Flexible, maybe.
There we go. Flexible and versatile. There we go. You see, I asked the English person for the English words.
Oh, thank you.
Hi there, can you hear us? That's good. Yeah, it's a shame Andre had an outside meeting today, so he wasn't able to come. But he says he often has issues with power, so it was better to pre-record it anyway. But yeah, he's given some good feedback, and it's been interesting to work with him. So yeah, if you have any questions, or this is the time for questions now. Also, any features you'd like to see, something really interested in going, or how you found field margin so useful so far.
What's everyone got going on their farms at the moment? Are you, because we're all different parts of the world, different hemispheres. Are you calving, lambing, servicing, turnout?
Scanning at the moment, getting ready for the lambing season.
Sorry, I missed that.
We are scanning at the moment. We are getting ready for the lambing season.
All right, when do you start lambing?
End of March, April, but starting April.
All right, you're right in line with our farm then.
I've got a question. Because we are farming, I mean, we've got a lot of, what do you call it, great stuff that you need to follow for the farm. And then you color each field as you want to follow the group that you're in. Because we have, let's say you've got, okay, we are farming 42,000 acres, that are hectares. So there's a lot of fields. Now each field has a group, so that it helps you in 1 year you're in that field, and then in 3 years time you'll be back in that field. So that gives it enough time to grow out, and then you're back there. Then you color that field a certain color. So I know for this year I need to be in the blue fields. Next year I need to be in the green fields. But every year you need to recolor the fields. How can you take that field colors and move it over to every year for 2023, for 2024?
So what you could do now is, as Ali showed, if you want to copy the same colors between years, like Ali showed when she swapped from 23 to 24 in the demo earlier, and it said you want to copy subfields. The next thing after that is, do you want to copy your field usages? So that would make your fields exactly the same usage that you had in the previous year. The other thing that we have is there's a bulk field usage setting tool. So to get to that, you go to the field section, and then there's a button that says set usage. And if you're, I think we might get a demo, Ali's going to demo in real time. So if you go to that.
Yeah. So for here, if you go to fields and you go set usage, and you go set usage, say if I want to turn all of my grazing into hay, I can select hay, and then all of my grazing fields are separated there. I just select them. I can also see what was in that field the year previous, which was no usage set, and I can mark them all up into being hay. So to kind of transfer a set of field usages that are all the same to a different field usage is quick like that. Does that help?
It helps a lot, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll make a note to send you some instructions. Would you find it useful to be able to kind of, with every field, have an additional kind of note section? So maybe you could have a field usage, and then also a note section of that field, which would maybe be kind of like planting or historical data maybe? Or field usage.
I think for us, the biggest problem is rain, because the farm is over such a big span.
Mm-hmm.
Some years you get a lot of rain on one side, so that forces you to move to that side more. So maybe you can add notes and say 2022, 2023, average for this farm was 250 millimeters. And for that field, or for that farm, 750. So when you look back, you see, okay, that's why I was there. I ditched the grazing plan and went to that farm because that's where I had to be for that side. I think that's going to help a lot.
Okay, that's a good one. Do you record your rainfall at the moment for the farm?
Yeah, like Andre said, I don't know, the South Africans, we've got diaries from fucking way back. So it's since we started farming in 1920. From 1920, we've got the rainfall for every year.
Wow. Yeah.
Have you ever tried the field health imagery for kind of monitoring rainfall and pasture?
For
kind
the
of
irrigation
wheat growth?
farm, it helps a lot, but here where we farm, it doesn't help. I mean, it's bush, it's small bushes. You don't really get the NDVI to bushes at all. So when you open my farm for the sheep farm, it's just red. It looks like it's Sahara Desert, but it's fine.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, I wonder if some kind of reporting linked to rainfall would be a help as well, because at the moment we've got reports for inputs and kind of yield, but I wonder if you could have a rainfall input somehow.
We would find it quite interesting. I mean, he says like back from 1923, we've got similar records and we've done it on Excel, and then we compare the years on graphs, and you overlay them like that, and you can then actually tell the commonalities in each year when the seasons are on that from that. And if we could have something similar with field margin in the reporting, that you could show your graph on rainfall, and layer on whatever you want to see. I want to see 10 years, I want to see 2 years, or whatever it is, and then be able to compare them like that to track how you're doing and what your seasons are like.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Something that I've been talking about with our designer recently is how, so you've got monitoring sites and lots of farms who are using those for tracking their rainfall. But it's very much like, this is how much rain you had on a given day. So aggregating those over time, so you could see maybe month to month or year to year, as you're saying, what was the variation like and the total rainfall that you had.
And even the fact it can be different across the farm, hadn't even got to consider that too.
Are any of you guys using weather stations and things like that? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's mostly for the irrigation farm, because that's about 200 kilometers away. So I need to know what's going on there and what's the farmer doing. Did it rain? Didn't it rain? I don't have to call him every time. I can just check on the app.
Oh, that's good. Are your staff keen to fill in that data? Is it just, did it take a lot of training, or is it everyone keen to get involved?
Just didn't give them a choice. Just say, listen, this is what I want. This is where we are moving. So follow, get on the trailer, or just get going.
I like it.
Good management approach.
What she does.
That's not what I do.
No. Fair enough.
We're about to test a new area with probes for temperature monitoring, to see what our frost levels are like through this winter we're about to go in. So I don't know if there's a way we can monitor that sort of data as well.
Yeah, so we do have an API for potentially connecting sensors like weather stations or like temperature probes, but it would require some technical work from the manufacturer of the temperature probes to integrate with that, but then it would be possible potentially to show them in field margin. Is there something that you've bought already? Do you know what brand you're going to be using?
No, I actually sent the email this morning to one of the guys at the varsity here in Maritzburg to try and pick that up, and see what the best thing is to get.
Okay, well, I'd be interested to know what you land on. Good stuff. Any other questions or suggestions? Otherwise, I guess we'll wrap things up. Is there anything from you, Matt?
No, thank you for coming, and thank you for always replying to my feedback messages. Really appreciate that. And we hope we've helped in some way.
No,
Yeah.
thank you, ladies, and well done to you guys and your team. You guys are doing a fantastic job. Thank you.
Oh, thanks very much. Thanks a lot for coming and for your time. Right, have a good rest of your day.
Yes, guys. Nice meeting you.
All right, bye-bye.